It's the My Michelle Live podcast.
My Michelle Live, Side Tech Talk, taking the God story to a geeky place. Here's Michelle.
Hey, Sci Tech Talk today. We're talking artificial intelligence. It is the next big thing. You remember the Industrial Revolution? This is the AI revolution, and it's happening fast. Every area of industry is going to be affected. They're saying that some jobs will be lost as a result because you just won't be needed anymore. A computer can take its place. Doesn't that sound like the Industrial Revolution? Really, telephone operators are no more. There's a lot of industries that had to change, and that's what's happening now. For service representatives, translators and interpreters, technical writers, copywriters, data entry clerks will all be a thing of the past, they say, and so will homework because you can just have an AI do it. We're going to take on AI, but we're taking it on from a man with an imagination. Now, and that's important. As we look at AI, what could it look like? Could artificial intelligence today lead to a sinister future? We've seen lots of sci-fi movies that have painted that picture. And one book that is absolutely outstanding that looks at the potential for science fiction horrificness is breaking yesterday. I have the author with me, Brent R Baker, good friend of mine, and you recognize him as a commentator from the Sports Time Out show. Brent, glad to hang out with you today, my friend.
It is always fun to hang out with you.
We do have, I don't know, maybe a trepidation, especially in the Gen X realm. We've seen a lot of changes. You have boomers, and they say boomers and AI, they're just like, yeah, not my problem. Not my circus, not my monkey. You have Gen Xers who are going, we've lived through some things. Let's just be real careful. But then you have the next generations who are just going, yay, no more homework. So we have some things to consider here. And that's where history repeats itself. There has been technology and changes that have come with a warning, but maybe the warning hadn't been heeded. Do you have some examples?
First, when you mentioned not my circus, not my monkeys, what this feels like to me with artificial intelligence is that this is the circus, but somebody let the monkeys out to run off on their own.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I think with me, first of all, when I look at technology, largely the technology itself is going to be neutral. I don't look at a piece of technology, I don't look at a computer and say the computer's bad or the computer's good. I do think for those of us who are people of faith or who are Christians, that technology naturally has a worldly drift where if you just kind of let it do its thing, it's going to take off down the current of whatever whim the world is chasing in the moment. So technology for Christians, I'm not Amish by any stretch, but I also think we need to be very careful in how we apply it. So with artificial intelligence, I mean, I think there's a whole lot that we're just scrambling to figure out about it. My concern is it feels like things like Chat GPT, which you can go in and have these chat-like conversations back and forth with a computer program that feel somewhat human, that there's not enough controls in place, there's not enough research done on the implications of this, and there's not enough transparency about what's actually going on with them.
That's the way of the world, though. We experienced that during the COVID era, that it doesn't matter if we've researched it, doesn't matter. We just jump right in. We see with artificial intelligence that there's a lot that can be done, and there's some great things that you can imagine now with AI. Even now, you can type in information and all of your symptoms, and you can get a fairly accurate diagnosis or some really good information on how to treat. That could level the playing field for a lot of people who can't afford the health care that people with great jobs and a lot of money can. So that could level the playing field. There are things that AI can do to computer programmers, Brent. You don't have to be able to write complicated code anymore. With AI, you can just tell a program what you want it to do in layman's terms, and it can figure it out. Of course, as we've seen with other booms in technology and changes, there's some good, but there's also some concerns. And one of my concerns is that we aren't on pace more morally with technology's advancement. So technology advances and morality's going, what?
There's nothing new under the sun.
There's nothing new under the sun. Yeah. And that's
the technology may be new, but the way we behave when a new technology comes out is, oh, look at this. This will be fun. Hey, look, we can split the atom. Let's make a bomb.
Yay, we. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
And I think even the term artificial intelligence can be a little misleading, because maybe saying something about it with that name that isn't there, because it isn't like a sentient, self-aware organism. It's everything that it's processing and telling you comes from information that it has access to. So that information obviously can be manipulated. So whoever programs whatever artificial intelligence you're using, whether it be ChatGPT where you're trying to write a paper, or like you said, medical inquiry site, if you pick and choose, if the programmers pick and choose what types of information are available, it obviously will have a major impact on what it tells you. So you could get really bad medical information from somebody's AI.
If the information is manipulated, for example, by big pharma, and what you're going to get from AI medical is, well, take this pill and take that pill and take this pill. So there is some concern there. If it was really utilizing all pieces of data, which ideally it is, maybe we might see some changes. But there's a built-in bias, because what information is it being allowed to be fed into? There are some other concerns too. There was an AI bot, Chaos GPT, that tweeted out plans to destroy humanity because someone tasked it to. Okay, great job. Do you not have anything else to do with your time? I'm just thinking. There was also a Google that you had sent me this article. They were in a rush to win this AI lead, and they actually had some pretty serious ethical lapses that resulted. So, as you said, it's not so much that AI is nefarious, it's what we're doing in order to try to get on top, or what we're able to do with it, that might be a concern. Do you want to comment on either of those stories?
Yeah, with Google, it sounds like they have a team of people who are designed to put up ethical guardrails in whatever Google's doing, and you can debate about their effectiveness, but they basically had their concerns overridden because ChatGPT, I don't remember who put that together, but Google was competing with that, trying to catch up. And it was more important to them to get their chatbot out there than it was for them to listen to their own ethicists. That's always a problem.
Yeah, think.
Yeah.
What were some of the results? Do you remember?
I don't remember specifically, but yeah, like on the Chaos GPT. Shoot, I haven't written about artificial intelligence in my novel, but it's like people have imaginations about what are the worst things that we could do with this technology. Building something that can float theories on how to destroy humanity and then have conversations about it. I'm not into censorship, but at the same time, when you're building something that can learn, because that's what the hallmark of artificial intelligence is, it's going to start coming up with other ideas and start making plans. I don't know. I'm sure that these things are self-contained. I'm not worried about Chaos GPT, but if it's possible to do something with a harmless chat program it's possible to do something with less harmless that actually has access to resources that could cause a lot of damage.
Of course, your mind can wonder, and that's which mine did here, is thinking, and in Breaking Yesterday, you talk about some fairly nefarious things that and ethical lines that are crossed in horrific ways, the devaluation of life and such, but all of that centers around utilizing these things to advance technology. And one question that I had while reading your novel is, for the people who were advancing this technology, did the ends justify the means? And how often have we seen that in history?
Certainly for them, since their goal was to rid the world of Christianity, since that was the end, the means were extreme.
Okay, so let me stop you there, because that's a bit of what we're seeing in today's world. Now, we're giving you a little bit of insight into Breaking Yesterday, where there is, we'll just say, a technology that is developed to time travel back through time to destroy the baby Jesus before he ever dies on the cross, redeems humanity. And then we could just rid the world of these troublesome Christians like Brent and I. Come on. So this is the crux of this science fiction thriller that you wrote, Breaking Yesterday. But in researching it and developing this imaginative technology, there had to be lines that were crossed ethically, morally, where life is concerned, in order to achieve this great thing that they were trying to do. But that isn't unlike what we do today at times.
In the book, in developing time travel, this group didn't really care about the consequences on the actual time travelers, what would happen to their bodies traveling into the past. Now, again, time travel, there may be some hints that something like that might be possible, but in the world I created here, in the universe, matter cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be converted to energy. So I've always wondered, if you went back in time in your body, what would happen if you end up in this time in the past where all of the atoms that compose your body already exist in some other form, some other person or some other a rock, whatever, dirt, because we all end up in the dirt and decompose and the atoms get recycled and formed into different types of molecules. Anyway, in the book, the time traveler, if you go back using this technology, your atomic structure will begin to disintegrate because it can't coexist with the atoms that are already there. Basically,
if that were
basically it comes back one piece at a time.
It's so fascinating, because what would happen if you could? Would you disintegrate? Would something else disintegrate?
The point was, though, that when they sent the first people back to do this, it was like, yeah, that might happen, but we have this mission to accomplish, and we're not going to tell them. They'll figure it out when they get there, and then they won't be able to get back.
Because the ends justify the means.
Yep.
Not only that, but we won't give away any secrets to the book or spoilers, but what gives power to this great ability is dance around some pretty horrifying ethical things as well. Bringing it back to today and what we're dealing with, as I've often said, my biggest concern about technology is that technology is advancing and our ethics are failing in many ways. We care less about people. We care less about the value of human life. We outright lie to ourselves about what's in the womb and what a woman is. We lie about science to ourselves for our convenience. So I guess the question is not only what could possibly go wrong, but what is the God story in all of this? Because you get to that as well. You present heroes and heroes of faith that make a moral and spiritual difference. Can we be in Breaking Yesterday, can we find those kind of people today? And can we be those people?
I think we first need to focus on being those people. Finding those people, I think trying to find those people takes the onus off of us. So I do think that
Yeah,
it's
Brent,
like, look,
I just say you should do it. Anyone second that
yeah,
nomination? That's great. I'm going to go
yeah,
get a coffee.
sounds good. So I think, yeah, it may not be pleasant, but it's always helpful to look in the mirror and say, as a Christian, am I living the life that Christ put forward for me? Am I using the gifts that I was given for furthering his kingdom, for loving other people? So that's the first question. I think one of the things that I wrestle with in writing this and the sequel too is, what is life and what is the value we place on it? So, of course, we talk about it with abortion. When does life begin? We deal with it all over the place, though. We have a society where we have an ever increasing number of people on the autism spectrum, and they are, I will say, targets of abortion in a lot of cases, or Down syndrome babies, same sort of thing. You have some cultures where you want to eliminate those people before they're even born.
Maybe we could take some DNA tests and see if there are people of the wrong kind of political leaning or the wrong faith. Really, like you had said earlier, there is nothing new under the sun. It's just a different evil in a different packaging, but it's evil just the same. And I'm not, again, saying AI is evil. As you pointed out at the beginning of this interview, it's a neutral thing. It's just a tool. It's how we use that tool that can be truly dangerous. AI is something, a bell that cannot be unrung. It will be part of our society. But here's the kicker. AI did not take God by surprise. It's not like he's up there going, whoa, did you say, like Gabriel, the angel, was like, God, come here. You got to see what these humans did today. You got to see what they created. It's not like God sitting up there going, whoa, what do I do now?
Oh, look what they did now. Yeah. I also think it's a question of life. I think one of the dangers of it to me is that people will begin interacting with AI as if it is a living person.
And what will that do to the psyche? Think about that. They have realistic, what they call sex bots, that people get into carnal and even emotional relationships with. And honestly, it leaves people, it's so hollow. We see suicide at record levels because people aren't having real connections the way we were created to connect. That seems really dark and sad, but don't you think it opens the door for those of us who walk in a biblical worldview to say, hey, there's a better way, to mirror that better way, walk in that better way, and offer hope to a hopeless world whose best attempt at relationship is talking to a computer?
Yeah, hopefully that's not our best attempt. Actually, it's interesting. Here I'm wearing my Star Wars shirt with
which is
C-3PO. And
groovy beyond imagination. It is so cool.
Thank you.
My
Thank you, Mom.
Yeah.
Watch Star Wars, and C-3PO is a living character as far as how we view, I'll say him. It's not, C-3PO is actually is a robot, but the way the character is, it's a sentient being, and that's not what AI is. The question we will start running into is, as the AI becomes more sophisticated and it becomes harder to discern whether we're interacting with a human or an AI creation, will we start regarding AI as a life form, which opens up a whole lot of ethical issues, because then you start protecting them with laws, and it actually it's just one more way that we try to make humans into gods. Whereas, oh, look, we created this life.
Well, and it's not
and now we can program it. Now we can program it to do what we want.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's one of the genius, I think. That's one of the geniuses, I think, of God creating us was allowing us freedom of choice. We can't do whatever we want without consequences, but we have freedom to choose. Do A, do B, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, but you still get to pick. AI is, I think, our sorry attempt to be God and create something that then we can control, which usually doesn't end well. Usually that switch gets flipped when you ignore the ethicists, and a computer program can take control of power systems or nuclear arsenals, and it decides, like Chaos GPT, to lock you out. That doesn't mean it's alive. It just means that somebody programmed it to do what it wanted.
So let's get back to the deeper God story, which is it didn't take God by surprise. This is all part of not history, but his story. So God knows what he's doing. It leads somewhere down the road. We have many prophecies and insights in the Bible that point to what may be taking place in the future. Regardless of what that fleshes out as, we know that God has a plan, and his ultimate plan, and even the allowance of differing things that happen around us, is all centered around redemption.
Yes, and as Christians, we need to remember that the war has already been won. And so in this time that we live in, that doesn't mean that there aren't like skirmishes still going on that can cause a lot of pain. But I think living in this world is sometimes, you hear about like some of those Japanese soldiers that are living on islands in the Pacific after World War II ended, and they didn't know that the war ended, and they're still out there looking for threats and fighting and all that kind of stuff. And I sometimes feel like that's the world we live in here. It's like out there in God's creation, which goes beyond the space and time that we live in. It's all been settled, but we don't have a view of everything. We just need to trust that when we got that message that, hey, the war has been won, you got to look out for what's going on around you, but be confident in the final outcome here.
And that's something that we can bank on. That is the God story. I want to talk a little bit about, now we delved into AI, great, but Breaking Yesterday literally is a sci-fi thriller that delves into some pretty cool technology, some archaeology. There's just layer upon layers. And what it's been likened to is, if you are familiar with the Frank Peretti series, Piercing the Darkness, This Present Darkness, incredible, imaginative books. This is in that kind of realm, because you deal a bit with the spiritual realm, with the physical realm, but then you add in this crazy technology. It's brilliantly written and it's a fun read. The technology, though, makes it next level stuff. You also have, interestingly enough, you're working on the sequel, and the sequel right now, you sent me a picture of the cover. That was created by AI, wasn't it?
It won't be the final cover, but it's, as I stuck something on my website, I don't want to just have a blank book here. Yeah, it's crazy. You can go on to, I did this on Microsoft Bing, and you can go in and say blonde woman with a cross tattoo on her back, which is what the picture is. And within 2 minutes, there it is.
Yeah, it's astounding. And yet, I don't think that AI could produce some of the pieces of literature, honestly, that, like we're looking at Breaking Yesterday and other things, because it lacks a bit of soul. What has been the evolution of this book? I think that each one of us has a purpose. We have a calling, that we have a reason that we're here on this planet, right? And yours is, one of your purposes, your passions, is telling stories. So for those who may have a story or a passion inside of them, whether they will write a book or start a ministry, or it makes a difference in their lives as a teacher or preacher, whatever it is, how did that cultivate in you, and how did it go from these imaginative ideas to into black and white?
I can tell you that if you're in college, that studying being a novelist is not a path to financial success when you get out of college. And of course, that was my intent, but life got in the way. I got married, had a kid, and for It was about 8, 9 years. I found myself working in a rural Michigan manufacturing stamping plant, which,
Ah,
yeah,
that
there's an
I
Easter
see
egg
some
there.
of
Yeah,
that kind of made their
yeah,
way
yeah.
into the book. So, what were you like imagining?
Like
Because
what could
work
be
was too boring.
what could be underground here? It wasn't fun, but it was like one of the best experiences that God placed in my life because I know in my mid 20s, I walked in with a sense of arrogance. These people aren't educated. I am.
Hmm.
I quickly found out that some of these men and women who, this was in the 90s, so some of those people were older and hadn't even finished high school or maybe even middle school. Wow, they're actually really smart. They're smarter than I am. They know this like the back of their hands. So it was very humbling from that perspective. And I
Yeah.
learned a lot, a lot of really bad things in the book happen surrounding a fictional manufacturing plant like that. And believe me, my experience was nothing like what happened there, but it was like, this is a perfect setting for something like some of these things to happen. Um,
Interesting. So,
so I did start as I started writing the story back in the 90s, and then
interesting. Okay.
yeah,
And you
so
know
that's
what
kind
I
of why it's
like
set
about
then.
that is that you, like everybody else, as you're expressing your passion, you play off of and you incorporate the experiences that you have had, your real life experiences, the trials, the tribulations. So the more that you have, the failures and the victories, the more of these that you have, the more relatable your message actually becomes as you develop your story. And it's encouragement to other people, because while Breaking Yesterday is a work of fiction, it does have a reign of reality, which is what really makes it fascinating to people. It's what draws people in. And in our age, we are in strange, perilous, confusing times. But being able to reach people in a language that they can understand, and sometimes by a work of fiction, can get people thinking about the things that are truly most important. And really, isn't that what we need in this age? We're out of time, but what a fascinating look at artificial intelligence and how the work of fiction can make a difference in your world. Breaking Yesterday will be linked on My Michelle Live and everywhere you're listening, viewing, reading this interview. Thank you, Brent, for your time today.
Thanks for having me. Always fun.
Always fun, and always fun to have you with us. God bless you.
More SciTech Talk at mymichellelive.com.